How can spirituality inform our sportsmanship? Our guest this morning will tell us all about that in just a bit. I'm David Rogers, and this is For Your Sunday Morning Drive, the short podcast with the goal of providing some motivation, drive, and encouragement, and helping focus your mind on spiritual things on a hectic Sunday morning. Daniel has been down with a sickness this week, so he's asked me to host today's episode. Today, our guest is Dr. Matt Barker. Matt serves as an assistant professor of communication at Freed-Hardeman University in Henderson, Tennessee. He hosts the Playing with a Purpose podcast, which aims to explore topics related to the moral development of collegiate athletes as it pertains to character, responsibility, leadership, and purpose. Matt is also one of the co-hosts on the Navigating the Four podcast, where he and his fellow hosts discuss strategies that lead to growth in areas of faith, communication, leadership, and healing. Both are fantastic, and Daniel has included links to both in the show notes. Matt, thank you for being on the show today. Let's get it on the road. This is episode 101, Sportsmanship and Spirituality. Let's go to church.
Are we there yet?
Legendary Notre Dame football coach Lou Holtz is quoted as saying, "Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it." Let's explore sportsmanship and spirituality. Throughout his football career, especially during his time in the NFL with the Denver Broncos, Tim Tebow faced heavy criticism. Analysts questioned his throwing mechanics, technique, and accuracy. Commentators openly mocked his style and even coined the term Tebowing in a sarcastic way at first. So how did Tim Tebow respond to this criticism? Probably not the way most of us would respond when faced with similar criticism. Instead of firing back at critics, though, Tim Tebow often said things like, "I will continue to work hard, be positive, and trust the Lord." He didn't deny the criticism. He acknowledged areas to improve. He didn't attack critics. He focused on effort and character. He kept perspective and focused on his identity over his performance. In other words, Tim Tebow recognized that his identity was not in his athletic ability or in the sport he played. He recognized that his true identity was in the Lord. You see, sportsmanship isn't tested when you're applauded or praised. It's tested when you're doubted. The way we handle criticism says more about our spiritual maturity than the way we handle success. Sportsmanship isn't just about how we treat an opponent in sports, although that's very important. Sportsmanship is about who you are in every aspect of your life, including when the spotlight isn't on you, when trials or criticisms come your way, or when you feel overlooked or slighted. In Philippians 2 verses 3 through 4 we read, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each one of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others." That's sportsmanship in its greatest form. You see, sportsmanship is humility when the world tells us to look out for ourselves. It's choosing respect when your emotions say retaliation is the best course of action. And it's looking out for the interests of others and not just focusing on our own needs, as we see in Philippians 2 verses 3 through 4. One of the clearest examples of spiritual sportsmanship in the Bible is Joseph in the book of Genesis. Joseph's story reads like a season where things just didn't go his way. And for any of us who have played sports for any amount of time, we have all had seasons just like that. But Joseph's bad season by far puts our bad seasons in perspective. You see, Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, and forgotten in prison. If anyone had a reason to become bitter, retaliate, or quit, it was Joseph. But here's what stands out about Joseph. Joseph never let unfair treatment determine his character. We see in Genesis 39 that even while he was in prison, the Lord was with Joseph, and he continued to serve faithfully. He didn't sulk, he didn't blame others, he didn't retaliate, he didn't let outside circumstances keep him from serving others. And then comes the defining moment. Years later, when Joseph rises to power in Egypt and his brothers stand before him, vulnerable and afraid, he has the power to crush them. Instead, Joseph chooses grace. In Genesis 50:20, Joseph says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." That's sportsmanship at its highest level. Joseph teaches us you can't always control circumstances. You can't always control how others treat you, but you can always control your response. True sportsmanship is trusting God's bigger story when your current chapter or season of life feels unfair. Here's what we have to remember. The world measures performance. God measures posture. In other words, sportsmanship paints a picture of who you truly are. How do you respond to adversity? How do you respond when others mistreat you? you, how do you respond when negative things are said about you? The world sees performance and results, while God sees our posture. Here's my challenge for you this week. The next time something doesn't go your way, when trials or criticisms come your way, or when you feel overlooked or slighted, just pause. Ask yourself this question: what would honoring God look like in this moment? As we conclude today, I want to leave you with this verse that will hopefully encourage you as you go throughout this week. Colossians 3 verses 23 through 24 states, "Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Jesus Christ." This verse reminds us that sportsmanship isn't about your reputation, it's about who you represent. You represent your church, you represent your family, and most importantly, you represent Christ. Thanks for joining me today for this episode of For Your Sunday Morning Drive. I hope you have a great week.
Matt shared some impactful thoughts with us on our Sunday morning drive. Now it's time to hear yours. Our discussion questions for this week are: when you face criticism, how do you usually respond? How could you respond in a way that honors God? Can you think of a situation in your life that felt unfair? How did or how could you choose your response like Joseph did? This week, finally, what is one specific situation where you can pause and ask, what would honoring God look like right now? Thanks for listening. For Daniel Doubt, I'm David Rogers. We'll see you Sunday.
We're here.